This week on Backyard Footy.
That was an interesting week. Yes, I got one at the beginning of the week. I was in charge of running the sessions and creating the sessions, and then by the end of the week, I was demoted then back down to not doing that. So I must have done a poor job in that process. But it was a roller coaster, and I think some of that just sums it up.
Yeah.
That first part of it,
Right.
It was an up and down, and just kind of trying to. The best analogy, I gave this to someone the other day. It was like throwing darts at a dartboard, and we're just going to see what we hit and what sticks. And one thing that I'm going to take forward and learn, because I obviously want to be a head coach in this league or League One at some point, is like getting things as solidified as you can. There's going to be change. There's going to be the players coming in and going out and that type of thing, but like to start the way that we started is not fair to the players, one, and really to the staff. I mean, we really didn't have a chance to set the tone and really drive forward and build.
Right.
We always felt like we were plugging holes in the dam, or where are we going next?
On the track.
What's up, footy fans? Welcome to the 25th episode of Backyard Footy with your host Hugh Roberts, where each episode I dive into the background, journeys, and experiences of professional athletes, former athletes, and anyone that's been involved with the game, and now coaches as well. I have my first coach here with you guys. It's a great honor, my man Dave Dixon. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Anytime.
Probably the closest coach I came with throughout the year. From first of all, starting with Jim, he's probably the one guy who took me outside after practices or trained after practice, took me to film, watched all my touches almost weekly, just really grew me to have me perform. It's probably the best year I've had in my personal season. So Dave, I appreciate you coming on the show, being my first coach on the show. So how's your off season been going? How's everything?
Busy, trying to get everything wrapped up and then look forward to 2020. So I've been trying to get all of the meetings done and get everyone situated and either out of town or settled into town for the off season, and just kind of looking forward to, honestly, a little bit putting 2019 behind us and quickly getting to 2020. And so a little bit of another rebuild. We're going to probably have some significant turnover in the roster, which can be exciting, as we look forward. So excited about that, and just watching tons and tons of video right now.
Is that like video, like recruiting wise, or the previous season?
Yeah, I mean, we basically sat down as a group and obviously evaluated the season and each of the players and our thoughts, and getting into those off-season kind of individual meetings and giving everyone an idea of where we want to head in the future. Those are always difficult because there's tough conversations to have in those, and coming off a tough season, it's even more of those. So, you kind of get through that phase and figure out, okay, here's where we want to go with the returning players. But at the same time, you're diving into all of the different phone calls and emails and information you're getting from agents and different players. And for us, we look at every avenue. I mean, we're looking at tons of college players right now as well. So it's been busy being out on college campuses and watching guys play and just kind of sorting through all of that. One of the big things for us in the off season is our combine. So trying to get prepared for that.
When's the combine?
December 13th, 14th, so it'll be same weekend as the Final Four.
Oh, okay.
So it'll be for mostly just college players. We'll have a few free agents, maybe some younger free agents that are still kind of trying to make their way. But it's been successful in the past for the independents, and something we're looking forward to as well this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I got found back from Richmond days too. So
That's crazy.
So what's your off season consist of? For us, it's a little different being on the pro side and athlete, but for a coach, like what is your, besides recruiting, you said you're on college campuses a little, but I didn't even know you guys came into the office like that and watched film until I saw you guys today. So
every day we try to knock out as much film on players that we're looking at. Each of the members of the staff has a different area maybe that they look into. I'm doing a lot of the college stuff right now, and trying to get ready for the combine. Mike is sifting through all of the agents. He has great relationships with so many different agents, and they worked together in the past, so they kind of have an idea of these are players that Mike would like.
Right.
So he kind of sifts through those, and he'll send those to me every night. I get a text and an email. Look at these 6-7 players. Mike is really thorough, and puts together huge lists of players, and so we try to, as quick as we can, narrow that down, get 3 or 4 players at each position that are targets, and then see what we can come up with.
Yeah, I had no idea about that.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Like, how did you get started? Just found out you're from Central PA too. Didn't even know that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How'd you get started?
So I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. Soccer, actually didn't have high school soccer in my high school till 9th grade.
Sorry, real quick. It's funny you say that because on my last episode I was just talking about soccer not being accessible like everywhere throughout this country. So it's funny.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I think you're 100% accurate with that. It's still in a phase, which is crazy because there's been so much growth, but it's still in a phase where it's very new in rural areas and inner city areas. I mean, there's so many untapped markets in this country. And I coached in Mississippi for a while, same thing. I mean, it's like, just if you have a good team in Mississippi, you have to drive 5-6 hours to get good games for them. I mean, it's crazy. So, but I grew up in Western Pennsylvania and just started to play. I was a wrestler and played every other sport when I was younger, and then started playing soccer and just kind of fell in love with it. And we moved to Massachusetts when I was a little younger, and we lived there for a few years, and everybody there played soccer. I mean, it was all different foreign backgrounds, and I had all these English coaches, so it was great. I really then knew that I want to try to pursue this. So and then my junior year in high school, I switched my position. I was a really, really slow center back, so I didn't have much of a future there. And going into preseason with my high school team, our goalkeeper got hurt. So I switched I was like, all right, I'll do it. I play basketball. I love basketball. I related to it, I think very well. So I switched over and became a goalkeeper in 11th grade, and then ended up going to play in college, and then played 2 years in the USL.
USL, what team did you play for back then?
Played for the Charlotte Eagles, and it was actually called the USISL back then. So it's had a couple different names. Yeah.
So that's how you got started with the Eagles.
That's how I got started with the Eagles. Yep. So I went to a small college called Houghton College in upstate New York, Western New York, and the guy who actually started the Eagles was an alumnus from our college, Brian Davidson. He was a goalkeeper as well. And so anyways, I knew a lot about the Eagles, and so Mark Steffen, after my senior year, asked me to come and be a part of the roster and play. So. And
then after that, you kind of stayed down there, coaching-wise?
Well, I wasn't much of a player, let's be honest. So didn't get much playing time, knew I wasn't going to make a career out of it. And back then, there was no USL Players Union forming, and wages were significantly lower than they are now, and everyone knows that they're not great now. Right. Back then, I mean, everyone was basically playing for 6 months and then playing indoor or coaching or doing something. They had to do something, but they were just playing because they wanted a chance. And so anyways, I knew that I always wanted to get into coaching, and so after my second year in Charlotte, the writing on the wall, I'm not going to get a ton of playing. I said I'm going to transfer and switch over and start to really dive into coaching. And went back up to upstate New York and worked with a friend for a year just to try to start to learn. And then went from there, been all over the place.
Yeah, from there, tell us where you've been.
Yeah, so I started out there, and it was a small school called Roberts Wesleyan College, and was an assistant, and ended up getting a job to start a women's program in Jackson, Mississippi at Belhaven College.
Wow.
So I did one season as an assistant, and then got a head coaching job at a really small NAIA school in Mississippi, and really had no idea what I was doing and what I was getting myself into, but ended up there and really enjoyed that, and was on the women's side of the game for 8 years at a couple different small schools, and then at Temple University as well. And then I really wanted to get on the men's side. And so I figured the longer I stay here, the harder it'll be to get on the men's side. And so ended up being able at one small school at Milligan College in Johnson City, Tennessee, get a job coaching on the men's side, and then from there realized like, boy, I really want to get working with professionals, and so I took a job in Mississippi with a PDL team and started to work full-time there and help them build a youth club, and then just loved it. I was like, I wanted to work with higher level players. And then from working there in Mississippi, came to Charlotte and was an assistant coach with the Eagles.
Back when the pro team.
Back when the pro team was there. So the 13, 14 seasons. We ended up actually 2013 losing to Orlando in the final. We had a really good team. Some guys I think that Samuel Asante, Stephen Okai, some of those guys, and Christian Ramirez had a really good team. A lot of young guys that were really, really great to be around. But
that was your first year with the Eagles?
That was my first year coaching with the Eagles. Yeah, I was an assistant.
The year after 14 Richmond.
Yep.
That's funny.
Yep. And then 2014 was our last pro season.
Yep.
And then the Charlotte Independents bought the professional rights, and the Eagles dropped down to what was called the PDL then, or USL League 2 now. And so Mark Steffens actually went to Pittsburgh.
That's right.
And asked me to come along, and so it was a really tough decision, but I felt like I wanted to stay in Charlotte and kind of run and do my own thing. So stayed in with the Eagles and took over the PDL team again there, and really enjoyed it. Had a great group of guys for a couple of years, and then was wanting to get back into the professional game, and a friend of mine got the job in Indy, at Indy 11, Martin Rennie, and so he called me and said, hey, I'd love for you to come up. We'd been talking, we wanted to work together for a long time, and so made the move up there. Just a season. Wasn't from a family perspective, my kids were starting high school and my son in junior high, and we decided not to move, so I got a little bit lucky, and Troy Lassane got a job in New Mexico, and Mike gave me a call and said, we'd love for you to come back and to work with the Independents, and so that's where I'm at.
So what's the difference like dealing with professional players at Eagles, and now it's shifting from PDL, which is mostly college for those who don't know. It's basically like the summer league in college. But now you're going to us. Like, this is by far for me the most expensive roster I've been on, the most talented roster I've been on, and I really saw big egos in the locker room.
Yeah.
How do you, as a coaching staff, kind of deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's different every year, to be honest. I think your group makes a big difference in that. We had a very much a veteran group this year. We had a lot of guys with lots of experience and guys that have played at very high levels for a long time, and even younger guys that have played at all different levels. And so I think that that's probably the biggest balancing thing that you want to get right, your culture and how you the expectations you have on players, the expectations you have on yourself as you deal with those players. I think that's really important, and I think this year for us was a bit of a crazy year. Went through a bunch of different things, and I felt like for me as a coach, I learned a ton this year about how to, and I don't like to say managing egos, but I think just how to deal with different players and create relationships.
Right.
I think trust is a big part of working with players and working with anyone, but developing the trust that I want what's best for you. I want what's best for the team, those types of things that I'm here to serve you as a coach, to make you better and to make our team ultimately the best it can be. And I think until players feel that trust, then it's difficult to manage, as you said, manage some egos. So, and I think there's always going to be times when you'd have disagreements, and as a player, you might disagree with how in the direction something's going. And I think from a coaching perspective, same thing. I might see one thing and you see another, but we have to figure out how quickly we get to that common ground. Because I think players, even young players, their mentalities and how they want to be coached and is changing. And so more so than a dictatorship, it's a partnership, which I like. I enjoy that better. I'd rather figure out the best solutions based on our players and and those types of things, rather than just stand there and say, this is what we're going to do, and whether it works or not, this is what we're going to do. So I think it's a something that as a coach you continually improve on, and that's something where communication, the trust, all of those things are something that I want to always get better at every day. I want the players to feel like they understand exactly what I want from them, but I also that I believe in them and believe in their qualities, but I'm also going to push them to help take them to the next level. So.
Right, and that's something I kind of got that vibe from you. I mean, I remember meeting you back in physicals, and I was like, hey, Mr. Dixon, you're like, nah, just call me Dave. And I was like, oh, all right, yeah, from there. But then that's just how you are, and I got to know you throughout the years, and I felt like any time I could, even when Jim was around too, I could just come to you like, hey, Dave, like maybe I saw something different as a player, give you my point of view, but hearing you now talking about those relationships, you implemented that throughout the year, and not just with me, certain people, like we all felt that vibe. So I don't know if you felt that way, but a lot of players just came to you per se because like we got that vibe from you. So yeah. I agree, and I think that goes a long way. You get the most from your players in doing that.
Yeah.
Let's kind of talk through this off season though. So you found out there's a new coach coming through during open tryouts, right?
Yes, during our tryout process, it was leaked, I guess would be the best word to say, through social media in Europe. Well, all over the world, I guess I should say Europe, but it was leaked through a source in Europe that Jim McGinnis was going to be named the head coach, and it wasn't supposed to come out that way at the end. Mike was going to meet with us and talk us through it, but I'm sitting there registering players for our combine, and my phone is just going crazy. It's just buzzing, and I'm thinking, okay, is there something wrong with my kids? And so I finally look at it, and all my friends are going, what's going on? There's a new coach, and so it was crazy. Yeah, it's a crazy time that weekend.
That's how literally I found out through Twitter, majority of us, and I just talked to Mike this offseason too. Like, yeah. So then we transitioned. I mean, all of us came, and there's only like 9 players from the jump for the offseason. Was that kind of the plan for you guys? I mean, I don't think it was, but
no, definitely wasn't the plan. I think what was really interesting, and I learned a lot from. And I think which really kind of held us back this year is the team was starting to be built one way, and then there was players signed before Jim was the coach to play one way with one philosophy, perspective, and then all of a sudden it's a big change. So you've got some guys that are signed that are coming in thinking one thing. Then you have a group of guys that you're starting the process of bringing in and signing. It was hectic, and so it was never the plan to start that way. Had we not started, I don't know when we would have started, because players just kept trickling in, it's a really, it was a chaotic environment for those first few weeks, and it was very hard to settle as a coach, because it was my first year here too, and I was coming in to work with Mike, who I had known. I'd known Mike since he came here to run the independents and coach the independents, I should say. And so I'd known Mike. We competed. I played against him in the Open Cup a couple of years, and we always had players in and out of training, and we would play games on Sundays for their reserves. So I knew how he operated. I knew how he wanted to play. I had good feelings about that. And so all of a sudden that's turned upside down, and someone's coming in that I'd never met before, I knew nothing about. So it wasn't just difficult for the players, it was difficult for the staff, because everyone was trying to figure out where they fit in on staff. We were still trying to even put the staff together, and we started preseason. I remember the physicals. It's funny because coming over and just standing there, and I'm watching 6 guys get physicals, going, what is going to happen tomorrow? I mean, how are we going to do a training session? These guys are going to be, it's going to be crazy. Yeah. And so I just remember guys, one after the other, everyone was saying, when's the other guys getting here? I'm going, yeah, they'll be here.
And 9 guys training like 4v4 every single day. Just fitness, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective too, I came here from Mike. I talked to Mike early in like November. Found out through Twitter about Jim, and then from a player's perspective, now that I look back on things, I think we kind of felt that divide between like Mike's players and Jim's players as Jim's players started to form in, and so like we're all on different page. Like I knew Mike for 5 years before this, playing against him, and I knew based off my time going against him, He's a completely different coach. You know, his style, the way Charlotte just always played.
Right.
And so you could sense like people were on different pages, and that transition on like 6 months into it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and it was difficult because you're right. It was guys, and to give credit to the players, during that time, I never felt like anyone quit on the process. It was difficult because there were some sessions that I know people walked away from in games, and myself included, that you're just going, holy cow, is this ever going to turn the corner? But I thought you guys did a great job of, whether some of you were biting your tongue and just kind of going like, we're going to see how this goes. You know, I couldn't really read that in many body language, and guys worked really hard. But it was a really difficult, you know, we were in preseason playing preseason games with a majority of the players trialists.
Yeah.
We
Majority of preseason.
Yeah, and so that makes it difficult because the one thing that, and you know, Jim knew this too, it was hard to like progress because you're going like, okay, we want to play this way, we want to do this, but we have 5 guys starting against another team that we're not even evaluating, or we're evaluating, but we know that like at the end of the day they're not going to be the 5 whether they're on our team or not that are in that group. And so that was crazy because I mean there was times when I literally would have to call all of my friends locally and go like, hey, we need 6 guys for this exhibition game. And that's how that's how Clay ended up coming to come play with us all the time. Was I called Jake and I said, you know, Jake, is Clay in town, or what guys are in town? And I knew Clay was a good player, and so I was like, we could bring him in. But think about it, I think he started next to you in the Atlanta preseason game.
Way back before them, the first one was Charlotte.
Yeah.
That was our first playing center back when we were against Charlotte, way back.
Yeah.
Then Atlanta.
Then Atlanta, that's right. And so it's like, so it was very difficult to progress. And so what I felt like I was on this hamster wheel of we were doing the same thing over and over, or we're always restarting from square one because we got a new player in. And that's really difficult to get points. And then, you know, we had to play, you know, Indy right out of the gate, and some teams that were established and strong. And so, you know, and you look at some of those results and you're going like, if we could have flipped those to where we were at the end of the year and played those games later, different story, I think. I do think we had a playoff caliber team for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
And my previous shows, I talked to some of the guys when I heard about like Don Maduro, Kavan, Enzo coming back, all these guys, like from my perspective too, it's playoffs 100%, we're fighting for a title kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really saw, it's my first instance even having 2 coaches, you know, transition in 1 year, just seeing how all different egos are really hurting the flow. And I mean, from a player's perspective, like I was very optimistic with 9 players, like whatever, like we're still gonna get this done regardless, even first couple losses. It doesn't matter, like we were very committed. I mean, we still were, even throughout the year. Enzo did a good job just leading us, telling us trust the process kind of thing. What was your role kind of with Jim?
Yeah.
I know Felix was there too. So.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that was one of the things that you know, we kind of had to work through, is like Jim, brand new coach, staff, brand new, you know, Felix and Jim had known each other but didn't really work together.
Yeah, I just found that out.
And we were working on, you know, we didn't have a goalkeeper coach at the time. I mean, we were still, so many things were up in the air. So what kind of ended up happening and being the role was just kind of catch-all, be-all, like, you know, with every aspect of the staff, from a training perspective, from admin perspective, all of those things. So, because it was his first experience, and he had a distinct idea of what he wanted to do, and so it was a tough scenario because he needed to be at the forefront of most of those things. So, you know, mostly my role was, you know, helping to plan training and give input in training, and then, you know, at the beginning of training, just the warm-up process / with Cam, you know, working together with Cam and the technical pieces of it on that. And so, you know, it was really tough, just like for you guys, with us trying to put together what our roles were, and it was evident on that as we went through the beginning part of that, because we weren't necessarily on the same page all the time, to be honest. And whether that was like with roles, with how we wanted to progress, and because there were so many different players coming in. I mean, a lot of it, I felt like I had to just focus on individually, like getting people to the right spots, to the right place mentally, physically, and where we wanted to go with, and stylistically, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Right. I remember you telling me one practice that you got demoted and promoted in like the same way.
Yes. That was an interesting week. Yes, I got at the beginning of the week I was in charge of running the sessions and creating the sessions, and then by the end of the week I was demoted then back down to not doing that. So I must have done a poor job in that process. But it was a roller coaster, and I think some of that just sums it up.
Yeah.
That first part of it. Right. It was an up and down, and just kind of trying to. The best analogy, I gave this to someone the other day. It was like throwing darts at a dartboard, and we're just going to see what we hit and what sticks. And one thing that I'm going to take forward and learn, because I obviously want to be a head coach in this league or League One at some point, is like getting things as solidified as you can. There's going to be change. There's going to be the players coming in and going out and that type of thing, but like to start the way that we started is not fair to the players, one, and really to staff. I mean, we really didn't have a chance to set the tone and really drive forward and build.
Right.
We always felt like we were plugging holes in the dam, or where are we going next?
Right.
So having a distinct idea, plan, but then just getting everything as organized as possible coming into a new situation, that's key.
Yeah, so we didn't win in the first 6 months. Well, one game out of 15. Like, I mean, were you guys trying different things out as a staff? As I told you guys, like, we were trying to stay optimistic from a player standpoint. We just knew at some point and how talented we were, a break had to come.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. We were trying to figure out what's the best thing to do as far as structure. Like, we changed, and to me, like, changing systems means nothing. Like, systems are just numbers, right? You can play stylistically and have the principles in the same game model, and you can change your shape.
Right.
I mean, if we want to dominate the ball, it doesn't, it can make a difference maybe a little bit with having an extra number in the midfield, but rotations and the way that the game has evolved, those things don't matter. And I think we got a little bit focused on, like trying to solve problems with changing the shape. Like that's gonna solve this. And I think that was a huge mistake. And it wasn't just Jim. That's me, the staff. That was our huge mistake. Instead of just saying like these are the principles we want to play by, and just day after day after day, kind of driving those home so that we create these habits, so that we can create comfort level of the players. We kind of went back and forth, and we went, well, if we play with a back three, that gets these guys on the field all together, and we, maybe that fits better with this person because he could be a great wing back. But that you're just looking at small pieces of each part of it rather than taking the whole picture and saying like, okay, the collective, we need to be stronger and defensively, so we're going to do this, and these are our principles. And I felt like we've never really kind of honed in on that.
Yeah.
And we just tried to change little things, and we're hoping that it was a quick fix.
Right.
You can't quick fix it. Right. And I know that there's pressure and those types of things, and being in the number 2 or 3 seat, you don't feel that pressure as much for the quick fixes. I totally understand that. And so, but I think where I failed is just asserting myself more to say like, no, we just need to stick with the plan. 1, get the plan. Then 2, stick with the plan and just keep going. Because I think some of our success at the end of the year, and you can disagree with me if you want to, we basically got a set way of how we wanted to play, and we just day after day after day fine-tuned it. And made it better. And it was like, okay, we have to get sharper in this in order to stay compact. we can't go chase this ball, or we can't do that. So we basically set our principles, and then our structure changed inside of that.
Right.
We played with 3 sometimes, we played with a back 4 sometimes. At the end of the year, people would argue, I say we played a 4-4-2 at the end of the year, essentially.
In a sense.
In a sense, right? With 2 guys higher in central and more attacking presence there. And, so to me, that's what helped us towards the end. And we were able to, day after day, continue to build on something. If you can't build on something,
Right.
I think you're going to be in big trouble.
No, I completely agree. As I said in my end of the year meeting, I just felt like there was no chemistry. And even in the first half of the season, like what you're saying, it's funny, you even pointed these things out, how he tried to nitpick and change the little things. That's how we felt watching film almost every single time after a game. It's like he's focusing on the little things, but in the big picture, it was like the whole team is not defending,
Right.
the whole team isn't shifting, it's just the littlest things, but we're focusing on the wrong things. And then like when the turnover happened, I felt like we were focusing a little more as a unit. And we just had a better idea and a better understanding.
Yeah.
That's really what it came down to, no matter who was in and out of the lineup, no matter what, like you said, you switch pieces up in the formation, but
Right.
those last couple months, we just had a complete understanding. It was just free flowing.
Yeah.
No one even thought twice. Sometimes we weren't even talking on the field, but we just had that
Right.
understanding out there, and
Right.
that's what ultimately I think is needed too in the long run.
100%. And I think at the beginning, Jim's philosophy and the perspective of that he wanted to play the game was a very extreme way. And wrong or right? It doesn't, right or wrong, whatever, it doesn't matter on that, because everyone has a different philosophy of the game. But his is a very extreme way of doing things in regards to pressuring and wanting to really boss the game through ways that are outside of the ball. And that takes, from me, an extreme amount of buy-in and an extreme amount of work. So it's not something that can happen in a short amount of time. And the problem then became we weren't getting results. We're not getting everyone on the same page. Like you said, we have guys that maybe some of their capabilities are different, but we weren't looking at it that, again, from that collective standpoint. We were then trying to gear it towards, well, based on these are what these guys are doing. And so that was an area that, again, I thought as a staff we needed to do better. When Mike came in, I think in that scenario he did a really good job of simplifying everything because at that point of the season you have to, because one, we had to get results. Like we had to have a chance, we had to get results right away. So you have to do as little as you can that makes the most impact. And so for us, it was just simplifying everything. Here's how we're going to play. Here's how we're going to defend. Here's how we're going to attack. Let's get to work. And I don't know if you felt that way as a player.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is that kind of so? Jim gets fired, Mike comes through. Is that kind of how it transitioned for you guys? We got to talk about when he came.
Yeah, essentially that first week, it was basically we had a game. The decision was made, I think, on a Tuesday.
So did you have any idea about that?
I had no idea.
Oh, okay.
And I never experienced that before ever. So there was a lot of, for you guys as players and for me as a coach, there was a lot of learning experiences for me. And that's a tough scenario. You don't ever want to see someone lose their job.
Right.
And so and he was working hard and really trying to do some really good things, and he's helped do a lot of great things in the club. So it was, it's just difficult, but it was caught us almost by same kind of surprise as he became the coach.
Right.
He was in that. And so Mike met with us that afternoon, and he was like, this is going to be, we have a whirlwind here. We have a game on Saturday, and we had basically 3 sessions. We're just going to try to simplify everything and then continue to build. And he identified a couple areas. He's like, these are the 2 areas that I really want. We got to get better defensively as a group. So it's interesting that you said that collectively, because that's what he wanted to focus on, was collectively we have to get better. Can't give up goals, and we can't give up bad goals, because we've given up a few bad goals in that stretch.
I agree.
We had sat, you and I had actually talked about a few of them, but we got to stop that, and then we have to be better at controlling the game. For Mike, he wants to control the game with the ball, and so that wasn't our objective at the beginning. We were trying to control the game by playing balls into the other end and pressing hard and winning balls back high up on the field. We still wanted to do that. We still wanted to win the ball back fast, but we wanted to try to then, or Mike especially loves, and me myself too, I want to dominate the ball as well. But so that was it. We need to get better collectively defending and collectively trying to keep the ball. And that's it. That's all we tried to focus on. It wasn't like, and then, Mike, I think, does a great job of individually, within our staff and then with the players of going like, we need this guy to sharpen up here, we need to show film here on this guy, and we need to make sure that they understand this. And so we gradually started to do more with that, which we weren't able to do as much of at the beginning because we were still, again, trying to get our heads wrapped around everything. Which that's on the staff for sure, but yeah, it was just simplified.
It's interesting you said that too. I mean, hearing you now that I think about from the season, like we noticed how you guys took us aside individually with the film. That was probably a couple months into when Mike came, but like that difference, I remember watching Valentin go with Felix a lot of times. You were taking me a lot, and those helped, and we started building chemistry from there.
Right.
For us too, for me, I mean, one, I had no idea I was going to get fired, but that practice, everything changed. It was free flowing. We talked about it immediately right after.
Right.
And so we were all like, we feel the difference when Mike's here. It was just like, just free flowing. But then he did the little things like, I remember in Richmond, I was just telling you some years before, like when you have a group of 11 just walking through, okay, this is where you're supposed to be. Center back steps here, cover, other midfielders come and double. But just pointing it out to us, I mean, we a lot of times felt like we didn't know. I remember listening to Enzo sometimes in the locker room at halftime to Jim and be like, Jim, like, do you want us to press? Do you want us to sit? Do you want us to do this? Do you want us to do that? Like, hearing that from our leader who has no idea, like, what are we supposed to do? That means like the whole unit really has no idea if we're supposed to, press, if the 2 forwards supposed to go, and then the 2 center mids supposed to go with the center. You know what I mean? It was just all different pages. But the little things. It's funny that it's interesting hearing you talk about the little things because they went a long way for us. And I think that's why we went on a 9-game unbeaten run from the jump when he came.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't win after that for the next 3 months. It was just another chaotic time, but then that kind of spoke to the end of the year too, how we finally figured things out and just, we're all on the same page. Yeah. What was your role kind of, were you like number 2 with Mike coming in?
Yeah, I mean, essentially. I mean, I think that, Mike, when he came in at that point of the season, he needed to be the main voice that everyone heard because it's a tough time. Just changed coaches. It's not a somewhat new philosophy. We had returning players and guys that were recruited based on the way that Mike wanted to play, but he needed to be the main voice out there. So, from a training perspective, Mike likes to split groups up and things like that, and so, had different responsibilities that way to run with different groups. I've mostly worked with the attacking group, but some of the same responsibilities. Mike wanted to do a lot more film, so I had a lot of responsibility when it came to putting the different films that he wanted together for us. Mentality changed a little bit on how we did basically our scout film and set up because he had a different idea of what he wanted to see than Jim, and so.
I also feel like Mike is well seasoned in the USL, and instantly when he came for the films, he knew every single player, every single team. But Jim just didn't know the league like that. No. But instantly from the film was like, maybe he does this, or I was even like, oh wow. Yeah. And
that's something I think, and Mike enjoys that. Like he enjoys that aspect of it, of knowing all the little things about all the different players, which I do too, and so we could have probably had 3-hour sessions if we talked about that, but yeah, but it was I felt like my role was, or my voice was a little bit more important when Mike came in, just to be honest from that perspective. One, for myself, it was more of a comfort level. With that, knowing that what Mike wants and how to achieve it. So that was one perspective, but I felt like I had a little bit more of a voice and a little bit more comfort to be able to express. I mean, I expressed stuff with Jim, and he wanted to hear our opinions and all of those different things. I just felt like the way I see the game and want to play the game aligned more with Mike. And so it's naturally a bit easier. Now, we thought different things at times on players and with the way we wanted to do things, but that's every staff and every coach and assistant coach are going to do that, and that's good because you want a different opinion as well at times to be able to go like, well, this is what I think and see. Might not be right. He may not agree with it, and he might go, Mike's very bright and he's a thinker, and so there'll be times when you tell him that and he'll start thinking about it, and then he'll be like, no, or he'll think about it for a minute and come back and kind of go, okay, let's think through that more, and why, and so I enjoyed that part of it because there was a little bit more cohesiveness when it came to how we see the game. And with Jim, I was trying to really just understand a different philosophy and the ways that I can help drive that forward. So it was a learning process for me.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you have a bunch of fan questions. Big popular guy here in this area. I'm sure you saw some.
I saw them.
Let's try to knock out a good majority of them.
Okay.
So what did you learn from this season, both on and off the field?
Off the field, patience was a big thing for me. I think commitment was a real big thing that I really got. It was a tough year for staff-wise to go through all of the different things, and so just being committed every day. And this is on and off the field. This one can be isn't mutually exclusive. Just being committed to show up every day, prepared to give your best to the players. It was difficult at times. I have to admit that. I told Mike this one time at the beginning of the year. I pulled up to the facility one day and I'm sitting in my car and I'm going, what did I get myself into? And I'm like, I had to give myself a pep talk to go in that day. I'm just being honest. There was a tough stretch there where, and I'm sure that you guys had those days, and I'm sure that there are other people that did, and all over this country that coach. But I mean, the commitment to showing up every day because I have to bring my best. I can't expect your best if I have a poor attitude and mentality and commitment. And then patience from the perspective of I'm the type of person that wants things to be done. Perfectionist, I guess, would be the best way to describe it in some ways with it. My wife would say only in soccer. That's the only thing. Everything else, no. But so just the patience on how to, even like you said earlier, deal with players, new players, of players with experience, players at different levels, but also then trying to find my role. So there was at times where I was extremely impatient with not having a role or a voice that I wish I would have. So those are the two things for me: commitment and patience. I learned a lot about this year.
What defines you as a coach, and what's the best team that you've ever coached?
Man, I think what defines me as a coach has evolved over time. I'm super competitive, just like anybody in this business that gets to this point. And for me, it used to be winning. I was completely consumed and defined in my life by winning. But only because I wanted people to think I was a good coach. And that's a tough thing to go through. You do it as a player. You play, and you basically, identity and significance is based on playing time / accolades, all those things. And I think as you get older and as you mature, you realize that there's different reasons that you play. And it's the same in coaching. And so for a long, long time for me, it was just about winning so that I wanted people to think I was a good coach. Now I don't give a rip. If people, I want to win. I don't care what people think about me as a coach from that perspective. For the last few years, it's kind of evolved more into, I love training more than games. I love being on the training field, and I love watching players improve, and I love challenging players, but I think building that relationship, like I talked about earlier, that's for now what I want to be defined as a coach, that someone can look at years later and go like, Dave was a good guy, he really challenged me to get better, he knew a little bit about the game that helped me, but he helped me be a better person, better player. For me, that's important, and it defines me. Best team I've ever had? So I saw who asked this question. He's going to want me to say the team that he played on that I coached, Lucas. I would say talent. There's teams that have been the best talent I've had, and the best teams I've coached are totally separate.
Yeah, there's a big difference.
So we won the PDL National Championship in 2017. That was the best team I've had, not because they won. We had, from top to bottom, the most buy-in I've ever had on the team as far as commitment to excellence and being the best version of you could be every day on that group. It was awesome. Talent-wise, and hopefully they don't get mad when I say this, talent-wise, it wasn't even one of my best Eagles teams, talent-wise. Now, there's some really good players on that team, and there's guys on that team that are playing professionally and that will play professionally that are younger. They were good. But top to bottom, it wasn't our most talented team. So those guys can argue with each other, the Eagles teams. But that was my best team. My best team overall, talent-wise, was the team that Lucas played on in Mississippi, PDL team. We had on that team, every single guy in the starting 11 is a professional soccer player.
Right now?
Or retired. They may have
Wow.
They all played professionally.
Wow.
Some are still playing.
Wow. Wow.
What a team that was.
What a team.
Yeah. So, and we lost
Wow.
in penalties. So my career always got, so I'm biased, but I felt like in my 8-year coaching in the PDL, for 6 of those 8 years, I had the best team in the country. Now, I lost in penalties every year until 2017 in the either to get to the Final Four or the game in the Final Four, whatever it may be. I lost in penalties. So 2017, for the last 2 months of the PDL season, which is only 3 months long, we practiced penalties almost every day because I'm like, we have a good team, and I'm not going down in penalties again. And we would do it all different things. We made them walk in from midfield. We'd have them, everyone standing in and around close and trying to distract them. We did all kinds of stupid stuff. We ended up winning our our game to get to the Final Four on penalties, and guys, just every single guy stepped up, buried it, and our goalkeeper was brilliant. But anyways, but that team that Lucas played on that we lost with Mike Azira, he's still playing in MLS, and Lucas, and we had a couple of guys that were played over in Europe. Our goalkeeper Brendan Moore's at Atlanta United. He went to England to play after that. I mean, our back line is still, we got Richard Dixon. I don't know if you know Richard. He was a right back. He's playing. Willie Hunt was one of our center backs. Lucas played in Atlanta and some other places. I mean, we just had a phenomenal team. David Lilly played for the Real Hawks. What a team that was.
Wow, yeah, sounds like it.
Yes.
Someone wants to know, why is it so difficult for kids or players without agents to get a trial or an opportunity?
Wow, that's a great question. I didn't even see that one. Man, that's a great question, and I think it used to be that you didn't have to have an agent, and it was pretty easy to get in front of someone. I shouldn't say easy, because that's not necessarily true. It was, you had to have someone in your corner, but you didn't have to have an agent. I think now it's virtually impossible without an agent, and I think some of it, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to answer the first part of this in an honest way. I think a majority of coaches and teams don't have enough manpower and time to do proper scouting and recruiting. That's my opinion. I'm not saying they're lazy. I think some are, and some rely just on an agent calling them with players.
Right.
But I just think that they don't have enough time. I mean, like, even looking at us, we get literally, before we started this podcast, we got an email that had an agents list and it had 14 free agents on it. So sometimes we can go through and go, oh, we know these 6 guys, we don't know these 2 or 3. You're just bombarded with so much information that it's hard to sift through. I want to see that change a little bit. I think that we do a thorough job. I know Troy out in New Mexico does a great job. Martin Rennie in Indy does a great job of figuring out and trying to find players that maybe under the radar or slip through the cracks. We don't do a perfect job of it, that's for sure. I think some of it's just based on you develop a relationship with certain agents that then they understand the types of players that you want or desire the way you play. So it saves a lot of time if they send you a list and go like, these are 5 center backs that are, let's say our profile. Every coach has a profile for each position. So this is the athletic qualities I want, the technical qualities, the tactical knowledge and soccer things that I'd like to see. These are the intangible things: attitude, mentality, work rate. There could be an age, height, weight. There's all different things that can go into it, and everyone's different. So if they have that profile and the agent knows those things, so they can go, here's 5 really athletic center backs that are really good in the air, that have all these 5 qualities that you like. Well, then it's easier to then just look through that list than to try to find this. Now, where I think this is going to hopefully change for players is as League One expands, right, and as the USL continues to expand, there's more and more opportunities for players. And what I've always told players, that you can't, I mean, it's the same thing with salesmen, I guess. When you go in, you have to get 10 no's before you get a yes.
Right.
And every no is just you're closer to that yes. And everyone sees things different. We've had, like, with the Charlotte Eagles, even way back in the day, we would have open tryouts, and everyone would be like, oh, you're doing open tryouts just to get money. The clubs get money. And I'm sure there's parts of that for every club, but to be quite honest, right? But we always found a player in those tryouts that were like, this is a good player. I mean, and some of those guys went on, then it was a stepping stone for them to be with us and then on to a bigger club or with more money or whatever it may be. And I still think that those opportunities are there. It is harder. It is harder. And I think the evolution of soccer in our country, good, bad, or indifferent, it's the same thing with college. So it's like, someone could ask that same question based on college. How do I get to a college outside of being in a DA program? Because now the college coaches have shifted towards, like, my focus of recruiting is DA because, quote unquote, these are the best players. And they may be, but I sure know there's a heck of a lot of good players in Charlotte that don't play in the DA. And I know if you drive an hour outside of Charlotte, I know in Mississippi there's no DA and there's good players, right? So that's a tough one.
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, I tell people too, go to those open tryouts. I mean, that's exactly how I even got started.
Yeah.
Throughout the years, it's gotten me here to the situation going to open trials 6 years ago. But I mean, if you're just trying to make a name for yourself, and like you said, keep going the no's and it's eventually turn to the yes. But even just going to those trials, you meet different coaches and different faces. And you learn, and people talk, and you know, eventually someone might just pick you up.
Let's use Chad as an example. Chad Porch that came into us at the end of the year. So he decided to the college route, went to college a couple of years, decided that I want to try to make my way into the game now. Had different things, played in the PDL, played in the NPSL, and just kind of was able to get in front of different people that can recommend him to someone. Now, he has an agent now, but the kind of the stick-to-itiveness of it, if that's even a word, but like where you go in front of players, because I used to say this all the time when I would meet individually with my PDL League 2 players. Go, anytime you get invited to anything or you see something that's open to go to it, right? Finances, obviously, or whatever, you have to make good decisions, but because you have no idea where you're going to be one time and one person see you and you're the player that they need.
Right.
And you could go to 5 of them and be even the best player there and they don't need you, they're probably not going to pick you up, or you don't fit their profile, but you just have to get in front of that one guy that one time. And so here, I think one of the things that we, as we talked about looking at video and different things. When I get something from someone, even if it's an email to our website, I always look at the video that they send, or if there's no video attached, I Google them and I try to figure out, okay, where did they play? I try to figure out anything I can find out about them as possible. So my kind of answer to that is it is more difficult now, but be persistent, make sure that, don't be afraid to play in the League 2 again. So you're saying, all right, I played in League 2 and I can't get these guys to get me in, go to another, even if you have to go to a different League 2 team. So there's some League 2 teams that do a great job of promoting their players, and USL coaches and USL League 1 coaches are going to pay attention to certain teams as well. And the PDL has a thing now that they do called the Scouting Network. They're doing everything that they can for players in their league to be recognized and or promoted to USL teams and MLS teams.
I didn't know that. So we have a couple questions from Brandon.
Okay, great.
Miller. So he wants to know, still this debate, top 3 Mexican restaurants in Charlotte. Cam thinks Paco's Tacos.
Yeah. All right, I have to be honest. I haven't been to Paco's Tacos yet, and it's on the list to go there. All right, so I'm sorry. Three Amigos I like. I don't know if there's different people that like Three Amigos, but most of my Mexican restaurant choices are dictated by my children. All right, so it's not just me dictating those, but Paco Tacos is on the list. My kids, they have a little place in Indian Trail that they like. I can't remember the name of it right now, but that's where we normally end up. But Three Amigos I like, and I'm gonna go to Paco's Tacos. Cam, he just hasn't invited me yet.
That's what it is. Who has the best/worst touch on the technical staff?
Holy cow, the best and worst touch on the technical staff. I would say that, honestly, I haven't seen enough of Mike to make a judgment on that. I would say, from an experience perspective, for sure, that Mike might be at the top. I would say worst touch, I would have to, myself, a little bit, although I've been working on my left foot, the little ping on my left is getting a lot better. So I would say I would be the worst. I would say, let's go, Mike and Felix would have been tied at the top for best touch.
What about Augie and...
oh man, Augie.
Yeah.
I would say Augie looks the best from that perspective, but it's all show. I think when you get down to it and there's a lot of pressure on him, he wouldn't do it. So now that he's in the MLS, he'd probably say he's the best.
So Brandon wants to know that one practice when the ball crossed the line. Do you think it was referee bias because there was a lack of VAR at Matthew Sportsbeck that led to the bad call?
Yeah.
Or do you think it crossed the line?
All right. So quite a controversy that day.
I was there too.
Yep. Hugh was there too. Yeah, that was and it was a call that I made, let's be honest, that I felt like in the moment, without VAR, I have to make a decision. But we've talked to the Sportsplex. We're pretty sure we're going to get VAR on our training field for next year. But as the ball squirted underneath Brandon Miller, I saw the white line and a little bit of green behind it. So at that moment, I made a judgment that the full ball had crossed the line. His argument was that at the angle I was at, I couldn't have possibly seen that, but...
Or were you behind the pole?
I was behind the pole, so I was really only looking with my right eye. But with my right eye, I thought I saw some green. So,
as a defender, from my view, I was defending my keeper too. In the heat of the moment, I didn't think it crossed either.
Oh,
yeah, got you.
Oh, yeah.
That was a funny one, though.
That was a great one, yes. You guys were not happy with me on that. And my refereeing is shocking. Absolutely shocking. I can admit that. Because I just get wrapped up in the game.
Right.
Watching.
Lose track.
Yeah.
How much does Popeye's impeding chicken sandwich affect your plan moving forward?
Oh, Mr. Miller. Yeah, I like to bounce. I'm a thinker as well. I'd like to describe myself as a wannabe entrepreneur. So I like to have different ideas. And so I'm not going to mention the full idea here because I haven't fully thought it through, but I have a certain chicken sandwich competing with Chick-fil-A on a certain day type thing going on. Maybe it's called Sunday Chicken. And Brandon seems to think it's a miserable idea, and that with Popeyes and all the different competition that I would lose my shirt in that business. So we'll see.
We'll see, right?
Yeah.
If there was promotion and relegation in the pre-practice 5v2, who do you think are the bottom 3 players relegated to the bench?
Wow. Now, in all due fairness, I don't watch as much of the 5v2 because I'm normally then coordinating with Cam on certain things. So I watch on some days. It seems like to me, to be honest with you, that most of the time that I turn around, there's a goalkeeper in the middle. And I don't know if, if that's just because it just happens to be those times I turn around. Is that something that happens all the time? But there's a certain goalkeeper that is always in the middle, so I'd have to put Brandon maybe in that group. It always seemed like Abdullah Mansali was in that group, in the middle there, or always making some kind of excuse of why it wasn't him to go into the middle. And I'm going to be honest, I would have to base it also on the games that I watched that Damo Duro spent a lot of time in the middle of that, and also every time he got into the middle was the one whining for Cam to get the practice started. So that's got to say a lot. So those might be the three guys that would get relegated to the coaches circle.
That's funny. Do you like working with your sister?
Yes, I do. So my sister moved down here.
And she's the one that walks the kids from walking.
She does, yeah. She works
I knew from the beginning of the year y'all looked very similar, but I didn't say nothing. But
yeah. No. We tried not to tell anyone. But she works in the front office and helps do some promotion stuff, some game day stuff, and really just some community outreach stuff. She really enjoys doing that and loves the game and loves to help to try to promote it and work with you guys. So
nice.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
I didn't know that. Of the 2019 independent players, which could go on to become great coaches of the game?
Wow.
That's a good question.
That's a great question. And I think that, so I have a natural bias towards goalkeepers and center backs being the best coaches because I played both of those positions. But for me, I think that they see the game, the whole game, and I also think that it's a lot more difficult for, this is my opinion, let's just say that. So it's a lot more difficult for the ultra creative players to go on and have great careers as a coach. Now everyone is immediately going to say, what about Zidane? Okay, now there's exceptions to everything. But I think the experiences I've had in this country of coaches that I had that were attacking players, 9s, 10s, 7-11s, that they had a harder time communicating what they wanted from the game because so many things come natural to those players. Mm-hmm. So they could never understand, why can't you do this? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you just do this when the ball came here? And I think with defenders, center backs mostly, goalkeepers, it's pretty kind of lunch pail. There's a lot of creative parts of that, but it's more, we see the game from more of a holistic perspective because we can see everything develop. So I would say on our team from 2019, I think that Alex Martinez already coaches and he's a really good coach, which kind of then bucks my creative player thing. But I think he'll end up being a very good coach. Let's see, who else do I think? It would be interesting because I think that he is a cerebral player and sees the game at a different level. I just don't know personality-wise, but Kevon, I think he'd be a great leader from that perspective because he's even-keeled and doesn't really get emotional about stuff. I don't know if he has any desire to be a coach, but I think that maybe he would.
I can see that though.
I don't know who asked this question. If Brandon Miller asked this question, he's probably wanting me to say him, but which I think he would be. I think that he has a good eye for the game. I think that you have a good eye for the game. I think that you have a good emotional part of you and relationally would do a good job of coaching, and I know you coach already. So I think you and Brandon, Alex, Kevon, and Enzo could do a great job, and Jorge. I think for him, he's just so much experience at so many different levels. And then Enzo, I've actually watched him coached against him with youth teams, and I know he's really passionate and does a great job of inspiring kids. I think coaching, especially as you start out and you're coaching in the youth ranks, just developing passion and inspiring players to want to get better in the game. I think all of you guys will do a great job of that.
Appreciate that. What would be the gag on your real life?
Jeez.
Gag reel of your life, sorry.
Not sure how to answer on that. There'd be a few things that happened this year on some of our trips, obviously, and when I screwed up some things on our trips that would have to be on there with food and scheduling and things like that, because those things are always make me laugh. I got one time in Mississippi coaching, I got sent off, and for jumping onto the field, that was a crazy thing, and celebrating. So I got sent off for that. That would maybe, because that one was a little bit comical, but I don't know. That's a tough one. I'll have to think. I'll come back. We'll answer that one via Twitter.
What's your favorite moment as a coach so far?
Oh wow. I think winning the 2017 PDL championship.
Yeah.
We put a lot of work into that. Our staff. And the players were, like I said earlier, unbelievable in the way that they worked. I mean, we had to win our final 4 games to just get in the playoffs.
Wow.
Won
the title.
And we ended up winning. And we played back-to-back. We played in the regional semifinal championship. Both games went into overtime, and then the final went into penalties. When we played in less than 24 hours, we played 240 minutes of soccer. Those guys were unbelievably committed. I was really, really proud moment of what those guys accomplished together as a group for me. So, but I've had a lot. I mean, like I said, I love coaching, and I just love the relationships. And I think another proud moment was my very first team when those players started to get married and have kids. Like that really put a perspective on what you do, because I've stayed in touch with, I do a bad job of it, but I try to stay in touch with as many guys and girls that I've coached in the past, and it's really cool to see them be parents, see them coach. Right. Like I have a lot of guys that I coach now that are coaching in colleges, and that is really fun. I went to watch some of their games, and just watching them do their thing is a lot of fun.
Yeah, full circle, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
President of the club, Jim McPhillamy, asks why isn't he given more time on the pitch?
I'm going to have to be honest. I think it's a fitness thing, but and I think he might be a little bulldog in the middle of the field, a little tenacious. He's a very optimistic guy, so I think that he would also be a decent number 10, where he's always trying to play behind, because every time he gets the ball, he thinks he could create something great. Which is one of his qualities. But yeah, we just need to see, I need to see a commitment to the fitness. And we can discuss it over another barbecue at his house. Because, oh my goodness, what a cook. So, but anyways, maybe it's a fitness thing.
Do you have any advice to anyone who's aspiring to be a coach?
Yeah, just engulf yourself in the game. I think learning as much as you can about the game and different aspects of the game early on is great. And then continually forming your philosophy. I have a friend that I coached with. He coaches out, Phil Dos Santos. He coaches at Vancouver Whitecaps with his brother Mark. And something he said to me that it just stuck with me when we were coaching together all the time was, he would always say, you need to know football and then know the football you want to play. So you can't, they're not separate from each other. So you have to know the modern trends of the game. You have to understand where the game's going. But within that, then you have to understand how you want to play the game the way you want to play it. And then being adaptable, like learning that as early as you can, because you might want to play the game a certain way. And I heard a podcast about this the other day. Going into a new job, what would be your advice? How would you work that? Because you have your way of playing, but maybe you're inheriting 20 players. You're going into a new college or whatever. It could be any level. It could be a youth team. just being adaptable, that maybe your idea, your philosophy, your vision for the game, it might have to come in increments, and you have to adjust and be adaptable, because that's all of coaching. And the thing that, you know, I think Phil said this, or Martin, it's like coaching's an art and science, but it's mostly an art. And so learning how to deal with players, manage players, communicate, those things are things that if someone, I wish, you know, when I started this way back when, if someone would have sat me down and told me those things, like, make sure your communication skills are like on point, because that's going to be the most important thing. If you can't communicate what you want, and you can't communicate back and forth with players and between players, then you're going to struggle. And then just being adaptable, creating what you want, but being adaptable. And then last thing with that is as quick as you can, find someone that can be a mentor. You know, and it doesn't matter, like, I think when people think that, they think, oh, I got to get someone who's at the highest level of the game and they have to mentor. No, they just have to have some experience and you know, look at the pathway that you'd like to go and find someone that's on that journey. And then they can tell you all of the things that you should look out for. Then they can give you advice on the mistakes you've made. And but having a mentor is massive, and it's something that I didn't do till later on in my career, and I regret that. I wish I would have gotten a mentor, you know, a little bit earlier on. We have some that are influences in our lives, coaches, and that we've had growing up, and that's how you normally start to coach. You coach the way you were coached, and then you start to form your philosophy. So I wish, as I was forming my philosophy, I would have had someone that I could have bounced ideas off of sooner in my career. I have those guys now that I can call and go like, hey, I had this great idea. And I have them at the point now in our relationship, they can be like, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard you say. That's never going to work. And it doesn't offend me at all. And I can then go back to the drawing board. You know, they're just not yes men. They're really there to try to make me the best I can be. So get someone like that, a mentor.
I completely agree. That's my life motto: never panic, just adjust. And even Pep in his interviews and things says that you have to be able to adjust to your players. And I think no matter how much of a philosophy you might have, you got to be able to adjust. So I completely agree. Yeah. Dave, appreciate you coming on the show.
Anytime.
It was an amazing show. For those of you who don't follow Dave, follow him on any social media, Twitter, Instagram. Let him know what you thought about the show. Rate, comment, subscribe. Backyard Footy is brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network of podcasts. That's bgn.fm on the internet. You can also follow them on Twitter at the BGN FM. Backyard Footy is also brought to you by Ruffneck Scarves and the Golden Gold Press. And thanks to our sponsor, Golden Gold Press, the best choice of your custom shirts, hats, mugs, and other items for just yourself or your organization. Check out their amazing prices at a fraction of the price of other places at goldengoldpress.com.